From athletes to authors, entertainers to innovators, we connect with those who help shape our culture. Join us in revealing stories of their lives and backgrounds, their triumphs and tragedies that molded them into who they are today. Authentically off-script and personally illuminating, this is Audibles with Jason Scarborough. Coming up next on Audibles, Dr. Glenn Boyce.
So your story starts in Watkins Glen, New York. Is that correct?
That's correct, Jason.
So how would you describe growing up there in Watkins Glen, New York?
It was a wonderful upbringing. I took into Watkins Glen was my home village, and it was in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. Beautiful area of the country, but I grew up way out in the rural part of it. And actually, I grew up in a small community called Townsend, New York, that nobody will have ever heard of by any means. It was about 7-8 miles up in the hills outside of Watkins Glen. But it was a beautiful, beautiful area. You could see for 20, 30, 40 miles, and the lake, Seneca Lake, where Watkins Glen is located, one of the most beautiful lakes in all of America. So it was a wonderful upbringing, and I really enjoyed my time, up there.
How would you describe your family growing up?
My family was a hardworking, blue-collar family. My dad was a construction guy. He drove heavy equipment, and that's how he made his living. And my mom worked as a secretary for most of her life for construction industry, and then eventually for Corning Glass Works. But that was their life, and very, very hardworking people. We were an incredibly self-sufficient family, Jason. We raised our own cattle for meat, and we had our gardens for our vegetables, and we pretty much did everything with our hands. If there was going to be any work done on our house, we were going to do it. If we were going to add on to the house, it was going to be done with my dad and I. And if we were going to lay a sidewalk, we were going to do it. It didn't matter what it was. We were going to be a self-sufficient family, and I learned at a very, very young age not only to work really, really hard, but I learned a certain amount of skills and that have certainly been a wonderful way to live my life, to be able to do things with my hands that I've enjoyed that I'm not sure I would have if I'd come up a different way.
So a lot of early mornings, I'm assuming, as a young child, correct?
A lot of early mornings, a lot of late nights, and a lot of expectations to get things done, without a question,
Did you have any siblings growing up?
I did. I have a sister, and my sister lives out in Arizona, and yes, and she was an athlete as I was, and so in turn, it was always fun because we would always, pick on each other, and she would come right out with the guys and play and so on and so forth, and she was a good athlete. And she was a little bit different than me, Jason. She was an extraordinary student, unlike me, unfortunately.
Now, you could weld, tear down a car engine, drive a bulldozer, all by the time that you were a teenager. Now, you need to show me another university president or chancellor. They can say that, right? Your dad felt it important for you, like you said, to work with your hands. So why do you feel your dad felt that was so important?
Well, I don't know if he felt that was so important, but I think that's what people thought would be my destiny. I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps, right? And so in turn, my dad had me at a very young age, because he raced stock cars on the dirt tracks of upstate New York. So in turn, I learned how to tear down engines. I learned how to weld, like you said, a very, very young age. And I could drive dozers and dump trucks and you name it. It was just because that's the way that we were brought up, and that's the lifestyle that we had. And so my destiny, of course, because Watkins Glen at that time was the epicenter for United States Grand Prix racing in America. And it was the only United States Grand Prix race in the country. And so in turn, racing in upstate New York, including the dirt tracks, was really, really popular. And so in turn, it was not uncommon for my dad to race on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and Sunday afternoon. And so in turn, that car would get tore up quite a bit, and I'd be out in that garage helping him an awful lot, try to keep the thing running. So that's what we did, and that was the lifestyle.
Is it true that at one time your dad wanted you to pursue being a race car driver?
There wasn't any question about it. My dad loved NASCAR, and I think his dream for me was always that I was going to somehow get on the NASCAR circuit and drive. And Jason, when I was 16, you could start driving in New York back then and racing. And so in turn, I was getting ready to, and my coaches went to my dad and said, one in particular, my basketball coach, and said, hey, would you keep him out of the car till we're done with him? Because I was playing all three major sports at the time, basketball, football, and baseball at my school, which was not uncommon back then. And my dad agreed, which really, honestly, Jason, surprised me. I didn't think he would agree to that, but he agreed. And by the time I became a senior, my coaches had taken me under their wing, and next thing you know, I was off to college, and my racing career was in the rearview mirror.
We talked about the skills that you had acquired by the time you were a teenager. So, and you talked about being an athlete in high school. So, how would you describe Glenn Boyce in high school?
The way I think I would describe him the most is I was incredibly dedicated to the athletic world. And unfortunately, not quite as much to the academic world as I wish I'd been, okay? And reflecting back on it, I really wish that I had spent a lot more time in the academics and a lot more committed to learning, okay? But I was definitely committed to my athletic endeavors. I worked as hard, I think, as anybody did. And I enjoyed every sport possible. And would pick up, if it had a ball attached to it, I'd pick it up and give it a try, Jason. And I was blessed because I played in a community that was a rabid athletic community. They were standing room crowds only, everything except baseball. But basketball and football, the community came out and supported it just like so many small communities around the United States do. And it was exciting, and it was fun to play in front of a community that was so passionate about the way you would play and about coming to games. And I had coaches who were at that time, and we were incredibly blessed because I had coaches that were truly at the top of their games. And so in turn, it was really a lifestyle for us. There wasn't any question about it at the time, and that was pretty special.
You played basketball at a small college in New York, but decided that wasn't quite the college experience that you wanted, but you had to pay for your own college. So what led you to say, you know what, I want a better or a different college experience, and what led you to make that decision?
Yeah, and I did. I had to pay every penny of my own college education, and so and that was fine, by the way. I never begrudged that, and I can tell you that that because I worked hard throughout my life, and I think, you know, sometimes people ask you, you know, what's the one thing your parents gave you? Well, I have an easy answer to that besides the love and so on and the support. You know, my parents taught me how to work hard, and they taught me to never, ever give up, never quit. And that was just not accepted, period. I can tell you I worked road construction for 5 summers to put myself through Ole Miss. And so I would go back to New York, and I would live at home, and I would work 3 months out of the year road construction and do a lot of tough jobs and drive a lot of heavy equipment and, you know, do a lot of other types of jobs and get up really early in the morning. And I wanted to quit a lot. I don't mind telling you, you know, but that was not acceptable in my house, and it wasn't going to happen. And so in turn, that's the one thing they gave me that was so very, very important that I've carried through life, is to work incredibly hard and never give.
You talked about how you ended up at Ole Miss. It's such an interesting story. So you're looking through catalogs, and yes, I would ask people to Google what a catalog is. You were looking through catalogs in the library, I believe, and you wanted to go somewhere warm because where you're from is snowy and cold much of the year, and you land on Ole Miss. What happened next?
Yeah, you know, just like you said, I was in New York. I didn't want to play ball anymore, and I wanted to just see a different way of life, and definitely wanted to get out of the cold. No mistaking that. So I started looking at catalogs, and the schools I wanted to go to and the states I wanted to go to, I couldn't afford. And so I was calculating my money, and I put out a Mississippi catalog, and it just happened to be an Ole Miss catalog. And sure enough, first thing I did, of course, is I flipped to how much it's going to cost me to go there. And when I realized and called down that afternoon and said, hey, you know, I'd love to come to your school because it says here that this is what it costs. And I got a sweet older lady I knew with a Southern accent, and she said, well, do you have a 2.0? And I said, yeah, I got a 2.0. She said, great. Bring a copy of your transcript and your checkbook and come on down. And I thought, whoa, wait a second. You know, are you sure that's all it's going to take? And she said, oh, yeah. I said, you don't understand. I'm loading everything I own in an old beat-up car, and I'm headed down, and I got to have a place. And she said, trust us, you'll have a place. The reason I say that, tell that story, and I tell it periodically to my students and to others, is because I always want Ole Miss to have that kind of trust. And I always want students and prospective students to understand that they can have that kind of trust and faith in this university, because I trusted that voice on the other end of the phone, loaded up my car at Christmas time with everything I owned, which wasn't a whole lot. It was an old beat up, rusted car from the snow belt, and didn't even know how to get to Mississippi, probably couldn't spell Mississippi back then, Jason. And here I come. Drove up on campus, and I'm blessed. I went up to the Lyceum where they told me to go, where I'm blessed to work every day now. And next thing you know, that night I've got a meal plan, I've got a class schedule, and I've got a dorm room. Jason, I'm the happiest guy in Mississippi or the nation, I promise you. And I just deeply respect the fact that my trust and faith was met, and it has changed the entire trajectory of my family history.
Chancellor, that is the epitome of leap of faith. So take me back to that trip coming down to the Magnolia State. You talk about when you arrived, did your family think you were crazy? Your friends think you were crazy? Like, what are you doing? Going to a state you've never been to, going to a school, just arriving, like you said, on a leap of faith. You know, what was that like with your family and friends to say, hey, I'm doing this. I'm taking the leap of faith?
Well, I grew up pretty independent, Jason, say, and I'm a first generation college student out of my family, right? So I didn't have the opportunity to visit and talk with my family about decisions like this, okay? I just made those decisions. And I made decisions from when I was very, very young. And it was just part of it. My dad was working a lot and worked a lot, and there were years where he would work out of town, and you know, it was a different kind of lifestyle. And my mom was doing everything she could to just keep the family together, work hard, and take care of us. And she was such a precious lady, and just really part of the inspiration of my life. But so I just said, hey, I'm headed to Mississippi, going down there to go to a university down there, and you know, she gave me a kiss and a hug, and away I went. It wasn't like, hey, why are you going down there? Or, hey, let's talk about whether this is the right place for you. There were no discussions or anything of that nature. There was no guidance offered, nor did I ask for any. All I knew is I had my checkbook and my transcript. Here I come.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
C-Spire's Fiber makes it so easy to make music on my computer. I was on Discord in real time, and it was like that. It's like that. It was exactly like being in the studio. From just the tap of the button, I can just transfer files or send over projects, send over anything. It's just something I don't need to worry about. I'm just like, I have the creative side, and C-Spire has got the whole internet side.
The fabric of any community is its people. It's the commitment to hard work and to be our best. It's where you know your neighbor by name. It's where family is important. At Covington County Hospital, we are your family and friends. That's why your healthcare is important to us. From emergency room visits to primary care to behavioral health, we want to make sure that healthcare is available when you need it. Covington County Hospital, where your healthcare matters.
Mississippi's farmers love what they do, producing food and products for you and your family to enjoy. But we know this land is not just ours, it's yours too. That's why our farmers maintain this soil, keeping it rich and bountiful. We are sustaining this land so it will be useful to feeding generations to come. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
talked a lot about different other places I've read and seen about the impact that being a student at Ole Miss had on you that in ways that you can see even now in your position as chancellor. How would you describe how being a student here at Ole Miss shaped you for your role now?
Well, I think the greatest thing about being a student here is, it was a different culture for me, right? And it was completely different in many ways, okay? But for me, it was a positive thing, very, very positive. I had some buddies that came down from New York after I'd been down here for a semester. I talked them into coming down. I tried to explain to them it's really a great place and so on, and they came down and they lasted a semester and went home. It wasn't for everybody, but for me, it was a great place. One of the things that was interesting, and my wife would tell you today, that she's still working on polishing me, okay? And she's not sure that's going to be possible, okay, at this stage. But nonetheless, I learned so many things culturally that I did not know. And just moving from one area of the country to another area of the country and seeing how people lived in the South, and the things that I loved about it, the things I've picked up today. Like, I never said sir or ma'am. We didn't do that in the North. That wasn't a part of our upbringing. When I ran in for supper, Jason, I ran in for supper and sat down, and if the food was there, I ate, and so, the things you learn and the polish that comes with being a part of this university matters, and the things you learn about leadership at this university, which is what we pride ourselves on. People ask me, Jason, all the time, Chancellor, tell me just one thing, just one, that you guys do best at Ole Miss. And I tell them that's easy. We build leaders. We build leaders. They're everywhere, And so in turn, I definitely feel like my experiences at this university, and by the way, that's all the way through my undergrad to doctorate. Okay, that's by no means just left it when I left here as an undergrad. But my doctoral program was so fantastic that it launched a whole new level of my career. And I tell students all the time, your destiny, your legacy, which we talk about a lot at Ole Miss, will always be determined by that last degree. And that's why you can't ever stop. That's why you've got to keep pressing in life and keep pushing. And I did that in 1987. My wife and I made a critical decision. And I married a beautiful, beautiful lady from here in Jackson, Mississippi, and I met her here at Ole Miss. And it was a special relationship. And our first date was out to an LSU basketball game, of all things.
Wow!
I thought I was really a smart guy, Jason. I thought, okay, now look, let's go to a basketball game. I'm going to get tickets to go to the LSU game, and back then tickets were free, so it was really, really helpful. Okay, and we're going to take you to a basketball game, and I had no idea whether she liked sports, didn't like sports, but I was so naive to think that anybody would like to go to a basketball game, especially an LSU game. So we went to the game, and we just had a great time. And but ultimately, she's been the love of my life, and she has been absolutely the inspiration for my family. And so, but she's worked hard at trying to polish me and trying to take that rough New York country kid out of me. And it's been good to see some transformation. None of that would have happened. None of that would have ever happened had I not gotten that car and trusted that voice all those years ago.
It's amazing when you see how things have unfolded. Like you said, when you got in that car and came down, and how things have unfolded in your life since that time. So as with any college student, you've got goals and ambitions once you leave college. So what were your goals and ambitions when you graduated from Ole Miss?
Well, that's a great question, and I'll tell you, of course, I had an education degree, and I was going to be a coach and a teacher. And back then, people didn't work as hard as we do today, helping students get jobs and positions. Just things evolve, and I didn't know how to get a job. So my wife was headed to Jackson to go through nursing school. And at the time, she was my girlfriend. And so I was like, I'm going to apply to jobs in Jackson to get a teaching job and hopefully a coaching job. And I took and applied to all these schools by simply sending resumes, and didn't know I should go down, talk to anybody, job fairs. There was nothing, like that. I had no connections. I wasn't from down here. I didn't have people that could connect me and everything. So in turn, I actually went back home to New York after I graduated and sat around and for about 2 weeks. And my mom came in to my room one morning, and this was my mom. She came in and she goes, "Hey, don't you think it's about time you got out of here and went and found something to do with your life?" I said, "Mom, I get it, I understand." And literally the next day I loaded my car up and a couple buddies and I went to Oklahoma to work in the oil fields. And so we head out to Oklahoma to work in the oil fields and figure we're going to make a lot of money for a few months and then we'll get our career started. Well, in the meantime, an individual had called my wife because I'd left her number, and he wanted to interview me for a job at a school down in Jackson. And I called her on a payphone because I didn't have a cell phone or anything like that, and she said, "Hey, you need to come on back to Jackson because this guy wants to interview you for a job, a teaching and coaching job." And I thought, okay. And I'd been out in Oklahoma. It had been an interesting experience as to how you got a job. And you went out there to the loading dock and the foreman came out and said, "How many people have experience?" And, Jason, the first day you don't raise your hand because you don't have any, oil well experience. Next day you realize nobody does and they're all raising their hand. So everybody raises their hand, right? Well, anyways, long story short, I loaded my car up and came back to Jackson and interviewed, and he gave me the position. And the next thing you know, I was into my career, and that was a wonderful opportunity. And that was another blessing, because he had simply had somebody from New York who had really turned out well for him. And so he thought he'd try another guy from New York. And so that's why he even called me, and it all worked out really, really well for me. Launched my career.
Yeah, you had a lot of success as a high school football coach and administrator. Some of the stops, and you correct me if I have any of this incorrectly, Tri-County Academy, Madison Ridgeland Academy, Canton Academy. So when you look back at some of those stops in the coaching profession, how would you say that, how can you look back and say you see ways that it shaped you now and what you're doing now?
Yeah, at that time, I had some really tremendous athletes, and athletes will make a good coach. I can tell you that right now, But I had some really wonderful athletes. I had some great families and great people. And I loved the classroom as much as I liked the athletic piece of it. I really did, and enjoyed it. I was a history teacher and really enjoyed that significantly. And it was a great experience. I pushed young people hard. And sometimes I think to myself, oh, they should have never had a young guy that young in front of all these young people and that kind of responsibility. Because I was one of the youngest head football coaches in the state at the time. And I also coached women in men's basketball at the time at the schools I was at. But also I was probably the worst track coach in the state of Mississippi at the time. One time they asked me to coach track. I knew absolutely nothing about it, so that's the way things were done sometimes. But nonetheless, I had a great experience and we won a lot. And in '87, I was blessed with a team that was fabulous and won a state title. And my wife and I had to have some serious discussions at that point about, do I become a professional coach or do I become a professional educator? And and keep in mind, as you well know, back then coaches didn't make what they made today. Or else I might have gone a different path in life. I don't know. But we both decided that we wanted greater stability. We wanted a family, and we didn't want to be running around the country. And, a coach's life is incredibly challenging and difficult. And you're going to move many times in the profession over the course of a career. And we decided that stability was more important. So I became a professional educator. But I'm going to say this, and I think this is really, really important what I'm about to say. And I talked to my students about this quite a bit. It was at that point, though, that I knew that if I'm going to be an educator, then I've got to go back and get the rest of my degrees. Because I really wanted to make a difference in the field, but I also wanted this. For a kid that was never supposed to go to college, for a first-generation kid who made all of his own decisions pretty much from the time he understood what decision-making was, I didn't want anybody to say to me, I'm not good enough to be in the interview room. And I didn't want anybody to say, hey, you don't have the highest levels of credentials, so therefore certain windows and doors are completely closed on you in your field forever. And so I was determined at that point to go get my master's degree and go get my doctorate degree. And I did that. Now, I worked through that process. I got my master's, I got into administration, I raised children, I built houses, I raised a family, I worked 60 hours a week as a principal. I did all these things that were necessary, but I never quit pursuing my education because I knew that the only way for me to ever hold and be blessed with a position like this in life was going to be whether I could achieve the highest level of qualifications necessary. And I tell students, your last degree, once again, as I've mentioned, it's not just your destiny and your legacy, but that's the degree that is going to allow you into that interview room or not. Now, they may not like me when they got me in the interview room, and at times they didn't. That was okay. I was fine with that. I don't have a problem with that. But nobody was going to tell me I wasn't good enough to sit in the chair. And I made sure that nobody was ever able to tell that to me. And it was probably the smartest thing that I could have possibly done was continue to pursue my education.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
It has often been said that home is where the heart is. It's where hard-working and dedicated people form the fabric of a thriving community. At Covington County Hospital, it's our priority to help keep our community safe, healthy, and moving. With our primary care clinics and services, we are working to keep you healthy. Because home is where the heart is. Home is where family matters. Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
The internet can be a dangerous place. With Connect and Protect from C Spire, you get the phone you want, and you get the tools to easily track her location, restrict content, and help protect her at any age. It's like a digital mom arm.
A what?
That thing moms do.
I'm not following.
How do I put this? Look out!
Oh, mom arm. Got it, yeah.
Introducing Connect and Protect from C Spire. Only $30 a month with free guided setup. Customer inspired, that's C Spire.
It's no secret, our crops and animals need water to grow. Whether it's growing soybeans, corn, cotton, cows, or chickens, farmers use this natural resource every day, just like you do in your homes and at the office. Our promise is to only use what we need to keep producing what you need. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world.
Those are two big shifts, if you will, in your life at that point, because you were having success as a coach to make the decision to pursue the administration side of things as an educator. That also required, as you said, for you to go back to school at this point in your life. It doesn't sound like it was that difficult for most people at that stage in life. You've got a family, you're having success in another field. I don't want to go back to school. For you, it sounds like it was easy. Is that a good way to frame it? To make that decision to go back to school at that point?
Yeah, the decision to go back to school was an easy decision. There was no question about it. The actual application of the work and the hours put in and the sacrifice and the completion and all that went with that was a years-long trial. So I think that, but I will say this, for me personally, because of the way I was raised, I was going to persist. That was not in question. Now, it took me longer than I wish it had, but in the meantime, a lot of positive things happened throughout my career.
So you spent some time in the Rankin County School District. I'm a former Brandon Bulldog, so I like to talk about banking ranking, as we like to call it. Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Programs for the Rankin County School District, and you were also a high school and attendance center principal at Northwest Rankin. So I love Rankin County. I still live there. So when you look back at your time in Rankin County, how would you describe those days?
Those were great days, by the way. They were special days, and there's two things that I remember most, besides all the great relationships and the people that I was involved with. Oh, wow. I just was involved with great people, great faculty, great people. Well, there's actually three things that I'd comment on that are important. Probably the first thing was really, really important was the fact that my faculty was special because there was a lot of transition going on in education at the time. Statewide testing was coming in, and so there was a lot of movement to accountability, and my faculty adjusted to this. There was we were moving toward block scheduling like colleges have from the 7-period days. I mean, huge amounts of change happening, and we managed to make that change and become one of the top schools in the state of Mississippi, and we were proud of that. Our test scores were out the roof. Matter of fact, the first year of statewide testing, we were the #1 school in the state, and we were very, very proud of that. So there were some really incredible things happening. But also one of the things that happened, which was fascinating to me, was my faculty put me up for basically a principal's institute at Harvard University, unbeknownst to me. Okay, it was a 3-week during the summer type situation, and there was a limited amount of administrators accepted from around the world. And I got picked, and they had done all the work and hadn't told me. And so then they called me in and said, "Hey, by the way, you're going to Harvard." And I said, "Yeah, I am. Why?" And they explained all this to me. Well, here's why I even tell you this story, and why I think that was a significant moment, was because I wondered all the way up there on that plane whether I was good enough, right, to compete and to be up there. You know, this is an elite principal's institute at an elite school, and you wonder, are you good enough? You sit down in the room, you look around, and you say, do you have the experiences? Do you have the knowledge base? Or can you articulate, you know, how you feel about issues and decision making? And can you compete? And here's what I learned, and I tell students this a lot. I talk a lot about this. I learned that I belonged. And that's not being arrogant. Because I had all kinds of doubts, okay? But that's what I try to tell students. The education that they're getting at this university in particular allows them to belong any place, anytime, anywhere, and I believe that with all my heart. And I'm proof of it. I'm walking proof, because the education I received allowed me to go up there with the confidence, and the experiences I had at Rankin County allowed that to happen. And that was the second thing that was incredibly important to me at that point in time. And probably the third thing that I learned about and was somewhat involved in at the time was you began to learn about the politics of K-12 education. And so kind of got wrapped up into all that and learned an awful lot about that, and that sometimes is wonderful, and sometimes it's incredibly challenging.
Well, then you move on to Holmes Community College, which is where you and I met years ago, vice president, and eventually to president. How would you describe your time there at Holmes?
Yeah, I was at the Ridgeland campus, and I was vice president for community and workforce development, and I was over career and technical education for the university as well, for the college as well. And I have to tell you, I had a tremendous experience, 9 years as president eventually, and it was a tremendous experience. And there was the things that I remember, and there's so many memories, but one of them that was of significance certainly was when Nissan was considering coming to the state of Mississippi, and they let me know that Nissan's considering looking at different areas, and up in just below Canton, right next to my campus in Ridgeland is one, and we're going to be responsible for doing huge amounts of training, and they're going to do something special that's never been done before in the car industry by producing multiple cars out of one plant. So they're on their way to significant change as a major manufacturing plant of automotive cars, and we're sitting here going the whole time, Jason, wait a second, we don't know how to make a car. We've never made a car in Mississippi in our lives. What do we know about a car, And I recognize what an enormous challenge that was for our college, because our college was expected to be the major trainer of their labor force. And so by the time we did pre-employment training, we did maintenance industrial training, you name it, we did it. And by the time I was finished as president and left Holmes Community College, we probably had trained anywhere from, for Nissan and the suppliers, 30 to 40,000 people for that industry.
Wow.
And what we knew was this. We knew that if we weren't successful, we knew if we failed, that we would be failing the state of Mississippi, because we knew no other car manufacturer would ever come into our state. And we also knew that the reputation we would get globally would matter, because they would say, hey, you know, we had to walk out and leave Mississippi. And with the kind of investment Nissan made, that just could not happen. And so there was an enormous amount of pressure through those years, but it was good pressure. It was good. It made us better. And the other thing it made us do is it gave us a solid reputation as to what our state was capable of doing, which we knew all along.
That's such an important story, and I don't know that story. I'm glad you told the story about the importance of the role that Holmes Community College played with Nissan. So you have to drive by Nissan when you go back to Jackson and feel a sense of pride. I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, absolutely do. And that story's never been told effectively, and that's a shame, because it's an incredible story. Then the second thing that happened at Holmes that I think about a lot is how I became the interim president there. I was sitting in my office one afternoon, and it was getting late in the day. I was thinking about what I was going to do that night, and I got a phone call from the board chairman, a guy named Pat McGowan. Mr. Pat he had been on the board for 50 years, maybe longer, and he was a wonderful gentleman, incredible, wonderful gentleman. And he was a man of few words. He was a banker by trade. And Mr. Pat, I'll never forget the conversation. I can almost give it to you verbatim. He said, Glenn, said, Pat McGowan here. I said, hey, Mr. Pat, how you doing? He said, well, I'm not doing so well. He said, had to put the president on leave today, and need you to come up here tomorrow and be the president. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, Mr. Pat's not a guy that jokes, okay? So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Mr. Pat? He said, yeah. He said, Toddy will be waiting, and Toddy was the executive assistant. She'll be waiting in the office for you, and we'll see you in Goodman in the morning. And he didn't mean him, but that I'd be in Goodman in the morning. And he said, you got any questions for me? I said, no, I don't think I do, Mr. Pat. I couldn't think of any questions, Jason. I wasn't going to probe into what happened or anything. And he said, okay, see you later, and hung up. I sat there for a minute, Jason, I really did. And then I thought, and then I looked up to the heavens, and I said, Lord, I said, I don't know what just happened, but I hope that this is being obedient, and I hope this is the journey you want me on, because tomorrow morning my life's about to change significantly. And I drove to Goodman the next morning, and Toddy was sitting there waiting and gave me the biggest hug, and well, the rest is what it is.
So much happened on your watch at Holmes. It's actually where you and I met. I was doing football play-by-play for Holmes, and I never knew who the guest was until a couple minutes before they walked in. But they always had someone from the school lined up for us to interview at home games. They said, oh, you're interviewing the president of the school tonight, Dr. Boyce. I'm like, it would have been great to know that in advance, so I could have some prep questions for him. And, and I felt like I was just trying to tough it out. Sorry about that, but we got through it. We got through it. It was pouring down rain. The game was it was one of those games where nobody could hold on to the football because it was so wet. We had a tropical system that had moved on to shore, and it was, but you and I got through it.
Jason, I thought we got through it great personally. I thought you were great. I thought you did wonderful, and always appreciated the work you did for us up there. And I can tell you, though, I do remember that night actually thinking about it out there, because I'm thinking nobody should be playing football here. Nobody should be in these stands. We need to send a band home and call it a night.
The thing that I remember about that conversation, too, was you said at that time, and it stuck out to me, and I remember it to this day, that you wanted your students to experience quality with everything they touch. And that is certainly something that has carried on here at Ole Miss. That's something you still live by, isn't it?
I live by that. I really do. My children will tell you that, because, and the reason I live by that is because, and once again, I'm very proud of my upbringing, so please know that. But nonetheless, I didn't have that opportunity growing up, okay? And so it matters to me that not every young person's going to have that opportunity. And when you're a first generation, and when you grow up, working really, really hard, and you want every young person to experience that at some point in their life. And so it was important for me, because in particular community colleges, you have an awful lot of first-gen students. So it was very, very important to me that all of my students every classroom they went into looked fabulous, had the proper technology for instruction, so that they weren't falling behind and that other students, other places were having an advantage that they didn't have. So I wanted every building, I wanted every room, I wanted every aspect of that college, from Ridgeland to Goodman to Grenada to Kosciuszko, all my campuses, to be places that were clean, safe, and I wanted my athletic facilities to be the best that they could possibly be as well, but it was important to me.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
"100 years ago, there were a lot more of us. Today, we're using the latest technology to make sure not one seed, not one drop of water, not 1 inch of this farm goes to waste. We want to be here for the next generation of Mississippians, ours and yours. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world."
The fabric of any community is its people. It's the commitment to hard work and to be our best. It's where you know your neighbor by name. It's where family is important. At Covington County Hospital, we are your family and friends. That's why your healthcare is important to us. From emergency room visits to primary care to behavioral health, we want to make sure that healthcare is available when you need it. Covington County Hospital, where your healthcare matters.
C Spire's Viber makes it so easy to make music on my computer. I was on Discord in real time, and it was like that. It's like that. It was exactly like being in the studio. From just the tap of the button, I can transfer files or send over projects, send over anything. It's just something I don't need to worry about. I'm just like, I have the creative side, and C Spire has got the whole internet side.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
And then you're on the move again. You're faced with another tough decision to leave a place that you'd had a lot of success as president at Holmes. And this time you're at the college boards. You're the associate commissioner for academic affairs. So again, your career is blazing down the rails here. And after becoming the associate commissioner for academic affairs, did you feel at that point like, hey, mountaintop? Or were you satisfied or not satisfied at this point?
I'm not a mountaintop guy.
Right.
Okay. I hope I'm still as humble as I was way back when, and I don't believe in that thought process. And but what I thought was, I'd done what I could at Holmes, and it was really time to move. And I was feeling that push and that urge to move and to have a new opportunity. I was blessed, and I had that opportunity to go as associate commissioner. And then events once again, and for actually the third time in my life, but events unfolded uniquely. And I was associate commissioner, and I was working, doing my job and so on. And I spent a lot of time at the University of Mississippi Medical Center when I was associate commissioner. So that was a real blessing. I didn't know it at the time in terms of what the future might hold, but I really enjoyed being over there with them and spent a lot of time. But there was a lot of issues going on and inside the system, IHL system, and I was working through some of those. And at the end of the day, the commissioner left, and he went to Nebraska to be the president, and they were getting ready to select a new commissioner, and some people had mentioned my name, but they had chose Dr. Boyce from the W because Jim had worked up there, and they knew Jim well, and I certainly understood that. I'd only been there 8 months, and so Jim came in, and Jim had spent, I don't know if it's 2-3 weeks, something of that nature, but it was weeks, as commissioner, and for whatever reasons, Jim decided. I was sitting at my desk again one afternoon, and Jim gave me a call. And he said, Glenn, he said, I want you to know, and I'm telling you first, that I'm going to ask the board to put me back to the W. He said, I really don't want to do this job. I was like, oh, okay, well, okay. Well, Jim tells the board that he doesn't want, and we're having a board meetings coming up very quickly. He says, I'd rather be put back to the W. So they have the board meeting, and you can tell it's kind of tense, and we're all ready to get out of there. and I'm leaving the room, and the attorney for the board stops me and says, hey, they want you to wait outside the boardroom. So I went outside, and I waited a long time. I didn't really know what was happening. I made some assumptions, but didn't know. And they called me in, and they said, hey, we would like you to be the new commissioner of higher education for the state. And I'm going to tell you what they did, though, Jason, that mattered deeply to me. They didn't say, hey, we want you to be the new interim commissioner for the state, because an interim position at any time, any place is incredibly challenging. And I have the deepest appreciation for people who serve as interims, because it's just a different, unique type of decision-making and type of relationship you have with your organization. And so I told them how much I appreciated them offering me the full commissioner's position so I could jump right in and begin with the authority of the position behind me in order to get things done. And so the next thing you know, 1 minute I'm the associate commissioner, and 2 hours later I'm the commissioner, and here we go.
But being the IHL commissioner, that's a big undertaking. You're over all of the state's public universities. So what were the early challenges for you in taking that job?
Well, the early challenges was catching up to speed. Fortunately, I had 8 months, and I had been involved with a little bit of everything, but it was coaching up to speed to the issues that were most prevalent. And of course, some of the things that were happening here at Ole Miss were a struggle and a challenge at the time, and we had to work through those. And I spent a great deal of time working through those in particular, and it was a university that I loved, so I wanted to do everything I could to provide as much leadership as I could during that period of time with the board and the university and the future. And so that was one of the big issues. But there was a lot of things happening across each university. And I needed to catch up on all the finances and catch up on all the decisions and different things that were happening across the entire university. And I needed, in particular, because it's such a political job, I needed to get out to my legislators as quick as I could and to my state leaders and have conversations with them about the future of higher education in our state.
At this point, your story is reading like a book. You've reached the highest point in education in Mississippi, and that's got to be the goal when you start this, right? Or at least one of the goals. It had to be when you guys made that decision in '87, you and your wife. So you got to be thinking at this point, I know you're not a mountaintop guy, but you got to be thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. Then the opportunity comes, the next page and chapter that you're currently living out, probably the most exciting. You get the opportunity to become chancellor here at Ole Miss. For the young man that drove down, and as you described it, a old rusted, beat up car from snowy New York, leap of faith to come to Ole Miss, and you mentioned it earlier, the building that you showed up to on campus, now you show up there every day to go to work. What in the world was going through your mind with that opportunity when it came to fruition to be chancellor here?
I'll tell you, it was exciting in regards to this in particular, because once again, I credit this university with giving me the credentials and so many other things, including my wife, my 3 great daughters, and all that goes with my trajectory, not just for Glenn, but for Glenn's family for the future. You know, all 3 daughters have degrees from here. All 3 daughters are highly successful. All 3 daughters are off my payroll, and which is always a nice goal, Jason. And they're into wonderful careers. But see, as I look back on it, my life and my relationship with this university is something that thousands and thousands of people can look back on and go, yeah, I do understand that story. I understand that part of this story, you know, because that's what my university did for me. And so in turn, the opportunity to come here and try to do everything I could to make it the best university possible during my time here, yeah, it was powerful, and it was an exciting moment.
And you've done that under your leadership. Freshman enrollment hit record numbers. The freshman retention rate reached a new all-time record in 2022 of 89.3%. That exceeded the national average at the time. Enrollment both out-of-state and in-state. It's been important to you everywhere you've been, but obviously more important here. What goals do you have year in and year out as it pertains to out-of-state and in-state enrollment?
I don't set any goals for that. We're always going to take and we're going to take our in-state students, and there always is going to be a place for our in-state students. The thing I love about Mississippi, and I hope they will never change, and I love this about my institution, okay? And I hope it never changes. We are an open access institution. If you take the college prep curriculum and you're a Mississippi high school student, you can come to my school. And you see, for a kid, once again, this comes from who I was, that wasn't supposed to go to college when life started out. I think it's so incredibly important to allow students the opportunity. Now, they may not choose it. They may choose to do something else or go to community college, but they can come to our institution. They don't have to have a specific GPA, you know, that is just for them and it's so high that they can't get in. They don't have to have a specific ACT score. Matter of fact, unless you want scholarships and different things, we don't even take the ACT as part of our admission criteria for our Mississippi students at this point. We want to give them the opportunity because we don't know who's going to be the next great student out of here that's going to do wonderful things and change the world. And we don't know what their foundation, their background's going to be. We don't know their drive, their will. So in turn, for us to be able to give that opportunity, so any student who's qualified through their college prep curriculum in their high school that wants to come to our institution and is from the state of Mississippi, we got a place for them. And I hope we'll always have a place for them.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
It has often been said that home is where the heart is. It's where hard-working and dedicated people form the fabric of a thriving community. At Covington County Hospital, it's our priority to help keep our community safe, healthy, and moving. With our primary care clinics and services, we are working to keep you healthy. Because home is where the heart is. Home is where family matters. Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
The weather's getting warmer, and that means Mississippi blueberries are ready to be picked. Make a day of it with family and friends at one of the many U-Pick farms across the state. Or take home Mississippi-grown blueberries from your local market, because locally grown is what's best for our state. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world.
The internet can be a dangerous place. With Connect and Protect from C Spire, you get the phone you want, and you get the tools to easily track her location, restrict content, and help protect her at any age. It's like a digital mom arm.
A what?
That thing moms do.
I'm not following.
How do I put this? Look out!
Oh, mom arm. Got it. Yeah.
Introducing Connect and Protect from C Spire. Only $30 a month with free guided setup. Customer inspired. That's C Spire.
I know one thing that you're very excited about, the Jim and Thomas Dove Center for Science and Technology Innovation. It's on pace to open still by spring 2024. Is that still the?
We're hoping that, well, it will be there by spring. We're actually hoping that maybe we can move it up, maybe we can get in by fall, but I don't know. That's probably optimistic thinking. But I will tell you, it's an amazing facility. It's incredible. It is going to be one of the finest classroom facilities and instructional facilities in America in STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, math. And the technology that's inside that building is absolutely incredible. The labs that are in it and what our students are going to experience, they're going to be able to leave their curriculums in those fields, and they are going to go out into the workplace and be more than prepared for anything that the workplace can offer them. And we're incredibly excited about that. And another thing it's going to do is open up over 60 classrooms across campus for us to expand some programming and for us to do some things that we desperately need to do because, look, you talked about the freshman enrollment, but overall enrollment has exploded. It isn't just freshmen. The freshmen have exploded, truly. And, you know, we had at one point our highest point over 5,200, almost 5,300 freshmen, which that's in the last 2 years, we've grown 46% in our freshman class. Yeah, which is probably as high as any place in America, maybe. But I'll say this, it also is extended into transfer students, and we've got the highest enrollment in our history, and our freshman applications are up 28% for next year as well. So what's happening at this university is truly amazing.
Of course, being a former coach, we got to talk about athletics here at Ole Miss. You're super competitive. I've known that since the first time we met, how competitive you are. And with athletics here at Ole Miss, things have been good. The baseball team winning the College World Series summer before last. The women's golf team winning a national championship. You've got cheerleading and all sorts of different sports winning national championships. And we're right in the middle of football season right now. Football team still in the hunt, still doing well. So I know how competitive you are when it comes to, well, everything, but especially athletics. How would you grade Ole Miss athletics where we sit right now?
Yeah, it's very important to me, and I appreciate the sports and everything you've mentioned. It's very important to me that all 18 of our sports are successful. It really matters to me that we as a university are seen as having a complete, well-rounded sports program. Yes, you know, we all love to go to Vaught Hemingway, and we all love to go to the Pavilion. We all love, certainly, you know, to watch our baseball team perform, especially the way they play. But the truth of the matter is, if you haven't seen our volleyball team play, you'd be amazed at the level of athleticism out on that court. If you haven't seen the soccer team play, softball, it doesn't matter what it is. And that's why right now we are building our facilities, and we're redoing some of our facilities and putting some significant monies into our female facilities, in particular our ladies sports, in order to give them the highest levels of opportunity to achieve facility-wise and to recruit at the highest levels. Because we'd like to be known as that university that has a top 10, top 20 program in the country every single year. And you know, the Directors Cup ranks programs across the nation. It's by Learfield, and they do it every year. And I pay close attention to that. And, you know, one year we were ranked 20th and one year 21st. And, you know, we slipped a little last year to 39th. But still, when you look at those, you go, there's a lot of athletic programs in this nation. I want ours to be from top to bottom wonderful and outstanding. And I also want this, though, and this is important to me. I want athletic events to be so filled with passion and vibrancy and excitement that our fan base knows they've come to an experience. And I think our in-game experience during our football season this year has ratcheted up about 10 levels. When you start at the Grove and you make your way into our in-game experience, and you've got drones lighting up over the stadium, and you've got incredible competitive games like we had with LSU happening, and you have all these things going on. This is the vibrancy that's happening at this place. And then this is attached to the second fastest growing college town in America. A recent report that was sent out said that in the last, between 2000 and 2023, so the last couple decades, Oxford, Mississippi is the second fastest growing college town in America, has grown 102%. And Jason, you may find this to be interesting. Bozeman, Montana was the number one of all places, Bozeman, Montana, and they had grown 103%. Oxford was close to the fastest growing college town in America over the last couple of decades, and that's not slowing down. So everything that's happening here is evolving into something that's new and exciting.
We've talked about faith, how important faith is to you. You've mentioned it a couple of times as we've sat here, so I'll ask it this way. What does faith mean to Dr. Glenn Boyce?
Obedience. Obedience. Obedience and love. I mean, those are the two things that it means. And I just hope, I just hope that throughout my life as I reflect back, and as I reflect back, I can see where the Lord had a plan for me. And it's more than a plan sometimes. I think it's a purpose. I use the purpose a little more powerful term, I think. And he had a purpose for me, and I hope that I've been obedient and fulfilled those purposes. And the love comes in is when you can get up every day and want to go do it, and want to, and you're never perfect, right? It's a sinful place, and I'm as sinful as the next, but my relationship with the Lord is very deep and very trusting.
My final question for you. Growing up in snowy New York, coming on, just the epitome of a leap of faith to come to Ole Miss. Looking back, what do you think young Glenn Boyce would think about how your story's unfolded? It really is like a movie. What do you think young Glenn Boyce would think?
Young Glenn Boyce wouldn't have had a clue. I grew up, and I don't know if I knew anybody, around my community that I know that I spent any time with that even had a college education. My teachers and coaches were the people I ran into that had a college education. So he wouldn't have had a clue. And the truth of the matter, Jason, you grow up and you know what you know. And you know what you know by what you experience and what you see every day, And so I do know this. I do know that if you had bet $1 all those many years ago when I drove up on this campus and said, that guy right there in that car that just got out in his T-shirt and old raggedy blue jeans before raggedy blue jeans were popular, is going to be the next chancellor of Ole Miss X amount of years from now, the odds for you would have been so astronomical that you'd have generational wealth to spread for years and years, I promise you, because the chances of that happening can only be driven by the purpose and plan of the Lord. There's no other explanation for it.
It has been incredible to watch this story unfold. And from the first time I met you, I knew this guy's different, and I knew it. And so I want to thank you, first of all, for your friendship. I want to thank you for that, and just thank you for what you mean, not just to Ole Miss, but to the state of Mississippi and the people here. And look forward to seeing the chapters unfold in the coming years. And thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Well, Jason, you know how I feel about you and our friendship as well. And thank you very, very much. And I want you to know that, one of those old sayings that I used to have on my shelf, I wasn't Mississippi by birth, but I got here as fast as I could, holds true. It's a special place.
We're glad to have you here. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Right at 12. I knew you had to be out of here at 12, so I kept looking at the clock, and I was like, I got to get him out of here.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for another episode of Audibles with Jason Scarborough.